Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to this ContainerJournal.com program, brought to you by Techstrong and Metallic, a Commvault venture. My name is Cody J. Brown. I'm the host of Techstrong Learning, and we have an exciting program ahead. First, I do need to cover just a couple of housekeeping notes. Today's conversation is being recorded, so if you miss any of our discussion, maybe you'd like to rewatch or share with a friend. The on-demand recording will be made available shortly after we conclude our live session today. If you have any questions, and we hope that you do, we want you to send those in to us using the Q&A tab on the right side of the screen. Over there on the right side of the screen, you'll also see a chat tab, and we want you to use that for more general comments, or maybe just let us know from where you're tuning in or what role you play in your organization. If you navigate to the Handouts tab, you'll see we have a whole lot of resources there ready for you to download, so feel free to grab as many of those as you'd like. And of course, before we close out, we are giving away 4 $25 Amazon gift cards, so be sure to stick around for the duration of our program today. So on to our title. We're discussing protecting Azure workloads with Metallic Data Management as a Service. And I'm joined by Mohit Kshirsagar, Senior Product Manager at Metallic, and Michael Shurit, Senior Product Manager at Metallic. So Mohit and Michael, thank you both so much for joining me today. Michael, would you like to take it from here?
That sounds great. Thank you, Cody, and thank you everyone for joining our webinar today, where we'll cover protecting your Azure workloads with Metallic DMaaS. Please note that for today's purposes, we'll be covering hybrid cloud workloads across a few topics. First of all, we'll take a look at the current state of hybrid cloud and the challenges associated with its adoption. Next up is a discussion around why you should be protecting your Azure workloads. And we'll then pivot to Mohit's part of the presentation, where he will provide a short overview of Metallic DMaaS and look at some of the use cases associated with it. He'll then walk through a demo around protecting Kubernetes, and we'll close out with a short summary of considerations for backing up your Azure workloads. So if that sounds good, let's go ahead and get started. Let's start by exploring what's going on in the hybrid cloud market. Hybrid cloud is very much top of mind for customers as they evolve their modern app and cloud strategies, and also consider how to evolve their businesses. And while every company has a cloud initiative, the reality is that most companies are operating in a hybrid environment with data sources both in the cloud and on-prem, while adoption of cloud-native technologies and containers in the enterprise is also growing quickly. So a few data points to consider. Almost 90% of all enterprises are engaged in hybrid cloud activity. And more than half of IT pros have data both in the cloud as well as on premises. And nearly half of IT and DevOps professionals surveyed say that hybrid cloud management continues to be a challenge for container backup. So these are some pretty eye-opening statistics, and they are expected to rise. And while companies navigate these disparate environments, they're also at increased risk from ransomware and cyber attacks. And data in silos from the proliferation of apps, increasingly constrained IT resources, and a growing use of cloud-native apps and containers are just a few of the issues that are facing companies today. So what are some of the considerations that we need to keep in mind when addressing cloud integration as part of your environment? Well, let's go ahead and take a look. As we have said, while adopting hybrid cloud is definitely fueling transformation, it's not without its challenges. First, data is in more places than ever, places you may not have had to protect before, like SaaS applications. And more data, as we know, can also mean more complexity. Next, we've all seen how hybrid cloud adoption is accelerating, and unfortunately, it comes hand in hand with unprecedented risk. Ransomware and new cyber attacks are quickly trending in the wrong direction. We've not only seen a massive spike in successful breaches, but also a growing sophistication in the nature of these attacks. We've all heard the adage of it's not if, but when, and this clearly creates new risk around data and system protection. Then we come to constrained resources. Successful digital transformation takes new and unique skills to drive change and to accelerate into the cloud. This, complemented with the well-publicized IT skills gap in a post-COVID world, leaves many IT organizations hamstrung in an already do more with less scenario. And across all of these challenges, we have data sprawl. As companies drive to digital transformation faster than ever, business data is increasingly spread across every application, device, on-prem, and cloud environment. This multi-generational data sprawl is challenging to manage and safeguard, even more so now as hybrid cloud strategies take hold. In today's era, where change is happening rapidly and the stakes are higher than ever, we are seeing the meteoric rise in DPaaS, or data protection as a service, in our industry. But why is that? Well, for starters, companies simply need to do more with less, as I previously mentioned. They also need very agile solutions with simple management, and they need flexibility for coverage at any phase of their journey, both now and in the future. And finally, they need to carefully consider how to safeguard their environments and their data against today's threats. It's important to remember that the job of protecting your data, regardless of where it's stored, is multifaceted. There are roles that you must play as well as cloud providers. It can be tough to know where those responsibilities, SLAs, and expectations fit. So let's unpack that a bit more. Most businesses who do not leverage dedicated third-party backup solutions are under the assumption that Microsoft and other native cloud controls are enough. Microsoft acknowledges businesses are always responsible for their data and recommends dedicated protection like Metallic, which is tightly integrated with Azure. And while Microsoft provides a robust, performant, and highly available application in Office 365 as an example, out-of-the-box tools are not purpose-built to meet the data protection needs of today's businesses. Dedicated solutions complement Microsoft's existing native capabilities, helping customers fulfill their role in the shared responsibility model. It's critical to educate customers on their data protection responsibilities with the growing risk of SaaS app and hybrid cloud data loss and where native tools may fall short. That's why it's important to understand this model. Let's look at the cloud service provider's role. Here, the cloud service provider is responsible for the infrastructure and underlying services of their SaaS apps, while the customer is always responsible for protecting their own data. This means CIOs, security officers, and IT professionals must recognize that the responsibility of protecting cloud data does not lie with their application providers. Then there's the customer's role. Data protection is the customer's responsibility. This includes data entering, living in, and leaving the system. And with that comes the responsibility of long-term extended protection of data residing in production and sandbox environments. And as you can see here, the shared responsibilities vary across service type. So if you'd like more information on this model, it's available on Microsoft's website, or please feel free to contact us. At Metallic, we're built exclusively on Azure, further extending the Commvault and Microsoft 20+ year strategic partnership. This allows us at Metallic to leverage the breadth and the security of the Azure cloud while delivering a simple yet powerful SaaS solution. It's worth considering what can be left unaddressed without the combined power of Azure and Metallic. Consider the following. First, data isolation. Here, you have no separation of backup copies outside source environments. An air-gap strategy is crucial in today's world, where ransomware is even offered as a service. Next, we need to take into account extended retention. Long-term data retention without native limitations is available only with the combination of Microsoft, Azure, and Metallic. Consider both your hot and your cool storage requirements. The third consideration is flexible restore. The question that we need to ask ourselves here is, do you have fast, flexible, and full fidelity data recovery options? And finally, there is the critical issue of SLA compliance. You'll need dedicated controls to fulfill both RPO or recovery point objectives and RTO or recovery time objective requirements. There are a number of features to look for in your preferred DMaaS solution to assist with all of the above. And whether protecting endpoints, SaaS apps, or on-prem or cloud-native workloads, Metallic and Azure deliver ultimate scale and continued innovations that keep you secure and recoverable in the face of deletion, corruption, or attack. You've probably heard a lot about BCDR, or backup continuity and disaster recovery solutions. Let's review the 3 most critical use cases for your data when running on Azure. When we talk about modern BCDR, it's not enough for a single solution to only cover cloud or on-prem workloads. You need to be able to address the entire enterprise environment, from the platforms on which they are running to their applications, including on-prem data that is moving to Azure, mission-critical data running in Azure, and lastly, enabling that shared responsibility model that we just discussed for protecting your SaaS app data. Together, Metallic and Azure secures the entire enterprise through a single pane of glass. So what does DMaaS look like for the modern data estate? Well, at Metallic, from the start, we wanted to launch a solution with breadth of support for hybrid environments. And as we've shaped our hybrid and multi-cloud support, it's really been about giving customers the ease and agility they need from a cloud-delivered solution, which is why DMaaS is the fastest growing section of our industry. And of course, SaaS app protection and hybrid cloud protection is core to what we provide. But some have seen DMaaS solutions that stop there in terms of coverage. Well, Metallic is uniquely positioned to help protect on-premises as companies transition to cloud and multi-cloud, with a control plane exclusively in Azure to protect a broad spectrum of workloads. Security is always top of mind, and as you know, a layered security approach is the best option. Let's go ahead and review 5 things that make Metallic security different. First, Metallic maintains this multi-layered approach to security, starting with our Microsoft Azure partnership, which provides us with a hardened, highly secure, and performant infrastructure. Secondly, virtual air gaps of backup data, AES 256-bit encryption, and zero trust access are built in to prevent unauthorized access to data. Next, Metallic also includes early threat detection capabilities and advanced insights into threats and abnormal behaviors. We also meet leading industry standards such as SOC Type 2, ISO.IEC 27001:2013, and GDPR. And then finally, Metallic is the only solution to currently achieve FedRAMP High status. It's capable of protecting GCC high and Azure government cloud environments. And all of this works seamlessly on Azure. Additionally, Metallic provides meaningful insights into backup data and threat levels to identify vulnerabilities and incidents in real time, seamlessly uncovering risks for early detection. And with Metallic ThreatWise, customers get fully integrated cyber deception, capable of spotting ransomware and malicious insiders in production environments before data impact. And all of this is built on Azure, leveraging the hardened and durable infrastructure of the Microsoft Cloud. At this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mohit. Mohit, take it away.
Thank you very much, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yep, we sure can.
Yeah, great. That's a great overview of Metallic. Thank you so much. I'll now talk about the Metallic data protection capabilities in Metallic and go into a little more depth and then jump into a quick demo at the end of the presentation here. So Metallic hybrid cloud portfolio includes VM and Kubernetes, databases, file and object, and Active Directory. Those are the four offerings that you can subscribe to from the metallic.io website. Through these offerings, Metallic has full breadth and coverage to protect Microsoft workloads deployed either on-premises or natively in the Microsoft Azure cloud. So with the VM and Kubernetes offering, you can protect Microsoft Hyper-V running on-premises and Azure virtual machines using a single pane of glass. You can use Metallic to migrate your workloads from on-premises, let's say a Hyper-V environment, to Azure virtual machines seamlessly. You can then use the database offering to protect your on-premises databases like SQL Server or any other flavor of databases, as well as cloud-native databases in Azure, like Azure SQL, Azure Postgres, MariaDB, and Cosmos DB. You can use Metallic to migrate databases from on-premises to cloud-native databases, or from cloud VMs to cloud-native databases, or just take the databases to your cloud VM in Azure, and vice versa, allowing you to do dev test kind of environments without impacting your production systems out there. With the file and object offering, you can protect your Linux and Windows file systems in whether they're running in a Hyper-V VM or Azure virtual machine, or even a physical server in which could be a Windows physical server in your on-premises environment. You can protect large amounts of data stored in Azure Blob and Azure File Storage too. Lastly, in the Active Directory offering, you can protect on-premises Active Directory deployments as well as Azure Active Directory. You can perform granular backup and recovery of objects, attributes, users, and groups, as well as Azure AD applications. You can purchase a subscription for any one or all of these offerings. And when you do that, Active Directory will be included as a free solution as a part of any one of the subscription that you purchase. So with that, go to the next slide here and talk about that. Yeah, it's great that we can protect all your Microsoft workloads, but what about the backup storage? Metallic provides the flexibility to use cloud storage or on-premise storage, which means you can leverage your existing storage investments, whether it is on cloud or on-premises. Optionally, you can choose to use Commvault's hyperscale storage, which is an on-premises scale-out storage solution as well. With the storage flexibility, you can easily configure a primary and a secondary copy, either using different storage targets, say on-premises and a cloud copy, or using different Azure regions. Let's say you want to have a copy in East US and West US, you can do that as well. You can leverage on-premise systems like HyperscaleX or your own storage investments, like I mentioned. And in addition to all of this, I know that we've talked about Microsoft workloads till now, but we also support workloads like VMware, AWS, and OCI. And all of the storage options that I've mentioned above here are applicable to all of the workloads that you can protect to Metallic offerings here. All you need is a subscription for either VM and Kubernetes, databases, file and object, and you will get the listed options on the screen as a part of that subscription. So why should you use Metallic? I know Michael covered some aspects of it. I'm going to connect some of the technical aspects to the value proposition there. The number one reason you would want to do this is a single pane of glass to manage your workloads and back up your workloads, regardless of which cloud they are in or whether they are in on-premises. As Michael mentioned, that Microsoft recommends a third-party tool to protect your workloads. Metallic fits right in there. The extended retention policies help reduce your storage footprint in the cloud, but still you can maintain your regulatory and compliance requirements. The granular backup capabilities simplify and speed up restoring your data from accidental changes or even due to bad actors. Flexible storage options in Metallic allow you to configure primary and secondary copy, like I mentioned in the previous slide, and you can use different storage targets for each of your copy or different regions, and you can achieve the desired RPO or RTO as per your requirements. You can use Metallic's air gap backup solutions, which I'll talk about in a couple of slides, for your ransomware protection strategy. And you can lower your risks by using the built-in anomaly detection and multi-layered security, as well as the security posture that will be available to you as a part of the Metallic offerings. With that, let's take a look at the first use case. Excuse me. In the first use case, is focused on protecting your on-premises data and hybrid cloud environments. You may not know this, but Metallic is built on Commvault technology, like Michael mentioned previously. Hence, Metallic users can leverage Commvault's extensive coverage in protecting on-premises workloads. This is like all of the 25 years of experience that Commvault has so far. We are building it into the Metallic SaaS platform. Metallic SaaS solution is purposely built to simplify the backup process so anyone can backup and yet deliver enterprise grade performance. Lastly, using Metallic, now you can easily migrate your on-premises workloads, whether it is virtual machines, databases, or even just file systems to Azure seamlessly. The second use case that I want to cover here is about protecting your mission critical data workloads running in Azure. Metallic not only protects datasets like virtual machines, but also covers modern technologies like Azure AKS, Azure Kubernetes, Azure databases, like I mentioned about Azure SQL, MySQL, and other database flavors, Azure files and blobs, and more will be introduced as time progresses. Metallic provides unique security benefits such as separation of security domains, helping identify unusual behavior insights, and has AI ML detection as a part of anomaly activity detection, which is built into the platform. You can use Metallic to backup copies to more than one region, as I previously mentioned, and use the granular backup capabilities to recover your workloads quickly without impacting your production environments greatly. The next thing I want to talk about is Metallic Recovery Reserve. I mentioned about storage options that we support cloud storage and on-premises storage, right? Now, Metallic Recovery Reserve is a managed storage solution that is offered by Metallic, and it's an easy button for customers who are looking for air-gap ransomware protection. There is nothing to manage here. All you have to do is consume the storage, and you can choose the storage tiers based on the type of retention that you're looking for. If you want long retention for compliance and regulatory purpose, you can choose a cool tier, which is offered as a part of Metallic Recovery Reserve. For faster recovery and improve your RPO and RTO, you can use the hot tier, and you can combine these to come up with your desired RPO and retention requirements. The key to Metallic Recovery Reserve is, like I said, no management overhead, simplify overall storage requirements. You don't have to own any storage as such. And most important of all, it is air gapped and built with encryption. So your data is completely protected from the get-go. With that, I'm going to jump into the Azure demo. I know we listed Azure SQL Server as the demo, but I'm going to switch gears and do a demo of Azure Kubernetes backup in Metallic. And then if we have time, I'll switch into the Azure SQL Server demo. So to start with, I'll just quickly share my screen and demonstrate the Azure Kubernetes backup capability. All right. I hope everyone can see the screen here. Okay, so when you log into Metallic for the first time, you will see a service catalog that you can choose from for protecting your workloads, whether it is a database, Active Directory, file and object, or VM and Kubernetes. If you want to protect other workloads like Microsoft Dynamics, Office 365, you can also use Salesforce Metallic for protecting your Salesforce environments as well. So Metallic is basically a single stop solution for all your backup requirements across different workloads, regardless of the cloud or on-premise environment. So to protect my Kubernetes environment, I will go and click on the VM and Kubernetes tile here. That'll take me to a dashboard, which gives me an overview of all of the workloads that I'm protecting already in my environment here. I have a bunch of VMs that I'm protecting from VMware, Hyper-V, Azure, and I have some Kubernetes applications. To protect Kubernetes applications, we have a simplified configuration wizard that anybody can use it. You don't need to really have a backup admin background to be able to perform backups for Kubernetes. So a typical user will go into the Kubernetes configuration wizard here and select the backup method that you want to use to protect your workloads. So the question is, when do we use a backup via gateway versus Azure AKS? I mean, the distinction is pretty clear. If you want to protect Azure AKS, you just pick Azure AKS. But if you want to protect any other Kubernetes distribution, we support any of the CNCF certified distributions, and you can use the backup via gateway method to protect those distributions. For this use case, I'm going to protect Azure AKS environment. Once you click on this selection for Azure AKS, it will take you to a storage option here. This is where you can select whether you want to use Metallic Recovery Reserve or you want to bring your own storage. Metallic Recovery Reserve will, you don't have to do anything but to just select the storage and continue. In case you select your own storage account, you will have to create a storage account in your environment and bring it here. And we support Azure storage for Azure AKS at this point. So for this particular demo, I'm going to select Metallic Recovery Reserve, and it's telling me that the cloud storage provider is Azure Blob Storage here. We have two underlying cloud options available for Metallic Recovery Reserve. We have Metallic Recovery Reserve in Azure and in OCI. And for Azure Kubernetes, we support storage provider from Azure. By default, it will be a hot tier because that's where you're going to keep your primary copy. You want to use a hot tier for your primary copy because that's where you will be recovering your workloads from in case of a disaster. The region is selected here by me already where I want to protect my workloads. And if I want to add a secondary copy, I can just check box on the secondary copy and it'll automatically pick a cool tier in the backend. And that's all you have to do in terms of storage configuration here. The best practice here is to use a hot tier for short-term retention, let's say 15 days, and I'll cover that in a couple of steps forward. And if you want to do long-term retention, like for compliance purpose or even have longer copies, you can use a secondary copy to do that. So once I've selected my storage options here, I'll click on next to decide how do I want to perform my backups. And that's typically called a backup plan. You can choose an existing plan or create a new plan for backing up your workloads. A plan is typically a combination of your storage, how frequently you want to back up your workloads, and how many copies do you want? Do you want to have a primary copy and a secondary copy, or you just want a primary copy? You can select these options in the create new plan page here. And you can set the retention on the primary copy and secondary copy. And this is how your backup will be executed automatically after this. So plan is basically automating your backup schedule for you, and it'll make sure that the retention is maintained for the primary copy and secondary copy as per your desired RPO and RTO. Effectively, the combination of this plan and storage combinations is going to help you reduce your storage footprint in the cloud and hence reduce the storage cost. So for this example, I already have an existing plan. I'm going to pick that and continue with it. And I have two copies already configured on that plan. So once I click next, this is where I configure my Kubernetes cluster details. I put in the Kubernetes API URL, enter a name, provide an authentication mechanism, and a service token. Once I click next, it'll allow me to create an application group. Now, the best part about Kubernetes protection in Metallic is that I can select the cluster level protection, which means everything in the cluster is protected, including namespaced and non-namespaced workloads. So all you see here is I've selected the cluster level protection and all of the namespaces, including default namespaces, is protected. And whenever you add any additional namespaces in future or applications to each of these namespaces, it'll be automatically discovered and be protected. So you don't have to configure this again. This will be a one-time configuration job that you can perform and then not worry about backups at all. So once I click finish on this, it'll kick off a job and complete the job for the applications. And if you see that I've created a client called, or a container called all applications. All of my applications that are discovered because of the cluster level backup, we put into that bucket. Now, if I want to review the details and perform restores or even do additional operations, I can go to the protect view under Kubernetes and click on the instance that I configured right now. So on the overview page, you see recovery points. I already have two backups that are run. One was yesterday and one was today. And I can just use this recovery point to restore my applications. But before I go into the restore operations, I want to show you one other cool thing is that when you do configure a initial backup, it creates an application group, and that it puts all your applications that are discovered into this application group here. But let's say you want to also protect your HCD in your Kubernetes cluster. And HCD protection is as simple as enabling a toggle here. And you can pick the same plan and hit save. And now you will have HCD also protected as a part of this application group. So once you go to the application group here, now you'll see that you have HCD, all of the deployments, configurations as a part of this HCD protected under the application groups. To look at the details, I can click on application and it gives me a breakdown of all the applications that are protected based on whether they are in a namespace environment or in a non-namespace environment. And it can protect all of the details like daemon set, deployments, and any of the manifest files as well. So if I have to restore a Kubernetes application, it is very straightforward. I just go to the overview of the cluster and click on restore here. And that allows me to restore from 4 different options. The first option that I'm going to show you here is how to restore a full application. When you click on the full application, I can now go into the discovered applications. And I have a WordPress and a WordPress MySQL, which is a standard template I deployed from, I think, these are default examples available on Kubernetes website. I already have these selected here. I'll click on restore. And when I do that, I have an option to restore in place. What that means is I'm going to replace the existing application running in there with whatever I backed up since November 9th. Or if I want to restore it to another cluster, which could be on premises, which could be a Azure Kubernetes, I can just pick the destination cluster here and pick whichever cluster I want to use as a destination, and the applications can be restored to that cluster as well. So this is how you can restore a selected application from one cluster to another cluster seamlessly. But let's say you want to restore an entire namespace. In that case, you can go to the namespace and cluster level backups, pick the namespace that you want to restore. And like I said before, you can restore it in place, which means it'll replace the contents of the existing namespace in the selected cluster. Or you could select out of place and just pick the cluster where you want to restore this. So you can move an entire namespace from one cluster to another cluster seamlessly without needing to do any additional configurations here. Once you click submit, the jobs will run, and then you come back to your dashboard. This is where you'll see updated status of your protected data sources. The count will increase for the applications that are protected as they are discovered through the jobs. And you will see the success rate for all of your environments, which are under the Kubernetes protection. So with that, that completes the Kubernetes demonstration. Now, let's say you want to go ahead and protect your Azure SQL Server or Azure database. In that case, what we can do is go back to the service catalog here and then now pick databases. So when I pick databases, I have the same kind of experience here, which is the simplified configuration wizard. Again, you have a dashboard which is focused on databases, and it gives you insight about your cloud databases, which could be Azure, Amazon, or it could be your on-premises databases, or these SQL Server, SAP HANA databases, or Oracle databases are running in your Azure VM. Even those will be protected here. So once you click on the new configuration wizard and you click on Azure databases, this is where you get a choice to select your Azure database engines. For this particular example, I'm going to pick Azure SQL Server, but you can pick Cosmos DB, MariaDB, MySQL, Postgres, and the user experience is exactly the same thing, which is one of the value props that we bring in about simplified management for all of the cloud databases, whether it is Amazon, Azure, or OCI, or even for your on-premise databases here. So I'll pick my Azure SQL, and here what we do, we are kind of giving you an overview of how your databases will be protected. This is a slightly newer UI. We are improving the user experience, which is why you see a slightly different user experience compared to what you have in Kubernetes. But by the time you trial, you'll probably see the newer experience in Metallic. But what I'm trying to convey here is that we're explaining how the backup is going to be performed for your workload because of the database that you're protecting. We are recommending a backup method, and we are also kind of explaining the supported storage options here. You can do a primary copy to Metallic Recovery Reserve, or you bring your own storage. And when you do bring your own storage, what are the options available? Versus when you pick Metallic Recovery Reserve, you can pick Metallic Recovery Reserve for secondary copy as well in the same region or different regions. So once I click next, we have to start with selecting a region here. You can select a region, and that's where we'll need something called as a backup gateway, which acts like a proxy to be able to connect to your Azure database and perform the backups. Now, the requirement for the backup gateway comes from Microsoft security guidelines about uh, not exposing your databases on publicly available internet, right? I mean, why would anyone want to just expose their databases in a public FQDN? In which case, Metallic cannot access your environments. That's why we need some kind of a proxy environment, which a proxy that can work with connect to your database and perform the backups. So once I select this backup gateway, I can either choose to add a primary copy, which could be Metallic Recovery Reserve, or bring your own storage. I can pick Metallic Recovery Reserve, and it'll tell me the nice options that are available here from a storage provider and the region that was selected. We're making sure that your database and your storage are in the same region so that you don't incur inter-region data transfer charges, or you don't get impacted by performance um, uh, due to uh, uh, due to inter-region latencies. You can cancel out of this and go to and pick your own storage as well, and there you can provide the same details about your own storage container. It could be the container name, credentials, and choose Azure BYS for your protection. Now, in this case, I'm going to pick my Metallic Recovery Reserve, which is already created as my primary copy. I'm going to do the same thing with my secondary copy. But if you notice, automatically we have switched to the cool tier. That way you can leverage lower cost storage for long-term retention for a secondary copy. On the next page, we can select a plan which will basically allow you to configure the backup frequency, the number of copies, and how long do you want to retain your copies, storage, your backup in your storage. And all of that is defined in the plan. And you have a set of plans that are already available, or you can click on the new plan and add a new plan here, which is similar to what I showed to you in the Kubernetes workflow. A little bit different UI, but more details are available on this page. So I'll go ahead and select my existing plan here. Then what we need, the next thing to do here is to select a cloud account, which is basically your Azure credentials. You can either select a managed identity, or you can configure an Azure IAM app that will allow Metallic to connect to your to your environment to discover your databases. Once you discover the databases, you can select the instance here. Today to protect Azure SQL and managed SQL databases through Metallic, we need a temporary storage to do a staging operation, which will soon be going away because of some improvements coming in the next quarter. But until that time, we need a temporary storage string that we can use from your account, and it's only going to be used for staging, not for the permanent storage. Once you enter this detail here, provide the SQL authentication, which is, it could be local authentication or Azure AD authentication, and click next. We will automatically back up all of the databases in that SQL Server instances. So you don't have to pick individual databases. It'll discover all of the databases in it and back them up automatically. At the end of it, you have a summary that is displayed here, and you can then uh, complete the backup operation, and it'll kick off a job for you immediately. So this is what it looks like when it comes to Azure SQL backup. You have an option to review the details. Once you review the details, you can even perform a backup on demand. You don't have to wait for the schedule to kick in. And if you want to do a restore, the same concept applies, that you can pick a restore point and pick a database that you want to restore. And once you click on restore here, you have an option to restore from either a primary copy, which could be in the same region, and a secondary copy could be in another region. And you can use that to migrate a database from across one region to another region. When you restore, you have the same options here, like you can restore to the same Azure SQL instance, or you could restore to another Azure SQL instance. It could also be a SQL server running in a VM in Azure or on premises, or you have an option to restore to disk, and you can take the contents out of Azure and restore it offline to any of your database as you see fit. At the end of it, you can, once you have configured the backups, you'll see that the dashboard is updated with the Azure SQL databases count here for protected data sources and weekly success rate. And that's pretty much it for the demos here. So with that, I'm going to quickly jump back into the slides here and go to the last slide here, which is kind of summarizing what to look for in terms of Azure backup, right? The one thing that Metallic provides is air gap capability for your production systems. We can do anomaly detection in the various offerings in Metallic. There is storage flexibility. You can bring your on-premises storage or cloud storage. You can use only on-premises if you want to do a backup copy and have secondary copies to your cloud of choice. You can do agent-based backups for the databases to get granular backup capability. You can backup VMs entirely and restore them as needed. Most important value prop is that the storage, when backups are stored in the storage, it is deduplicated and compressed before storing in the storage and over the network. So your cross-region copies are less expensive, and your storage is also less expensive because of this reason. The granular recovery allows you to recover specific objects. That means your recovery is fast. You don't have to wait for the entire VM to be recovered. You could do that as well, but when it comes to agent-based backups, that's where you have the benefit of recovering specific files or folders. All of this is encrypted in flight or at rest, and we support a wide variety of Azure native workloads through VM and Kubernetes backup, databases, and file system backup. With that, I will pass the ball back to Michael for any Q&A. Of course, you can start. You can also sign up for trial on metallic.io/trial and give it a test run. Thank you. Michael, back to you.
Thanks, Mohit. Fantastic demo. Appreciate that. Cody, I don't know, do we have some questions that have come in, or?
We do have a couple, but I'll also take this time to remind our audience to go ahead and send in any questions you've had up until this point, and we've got plenty of time to address them. So let's take it from the top. Why do customers need to back up Azure databases specifically?
Yeah, I can take that. Okay. I can take that one. So as we've talked about, Azure database services are highly available and redundant. And, companies definitely need purpose-built protection to address the shifting nature of those threats that go along with the cloud modernization. You simply put, threats to database integrity, they just require a different approach in the cloud. And so it's really critical that production data and those workloads are isolated from the production domain, and that backup fills that role. And of course, with on-premise options, you also have to consider hardware failure as well as fire, flood, and other scenarios. And as we know, business critical services such as inventory systems, licenses, and others are back-ended by data. And that data is what allows the app to deliver value to the end user. So I think the question becomes, why wouldn't you protect that intellectual property? And, we also know that there's two key components to apps, right? There's compute and there's storage. And Metallic specifically focuses on the latter. Malware and malicious insider threats, as we talked about, have never been higher. and unknown threats continue to proliferate. And it's just really hard to predict where the next one's going to come from. So we're providing that peace of mind with Metallic backup for Azure databases so that you can keep those business critical apps up and running, no matter what. And some of the things that it does provide security for, as we touched on, are things like accidental deletion, corrupted code, malware, bad actors, as Mohit touched on, and of course, zero-day threats. So yeah, I think, there's a lot of good reasons to back those up as we've touched on here.
So are there any reasons customers should not rely on native backup capabilities?
Yeah, I think, we are aware that, not all Azure databases offer native backup. Some do. And you also have differing retention periods. So for example, Azure Cosmos DB does offer that. But you also want to be able to leverage backup capabilities across a broad landscape of different apps and different databases. And there's myriad options for Azure, as we know. There's also the threat, like we touched on, of future attacks that we can't predict. And so, I think having, that complement to Azure backup allows customers to sleep better at night, knowing that their databases are protected in any scenario.
So are there any other requirements to using Metallic backup for Azure databases?
Yeah, Mohit, you want to take that one?
Yeah, so considering today, Microsoft has two security guidelines about making sure that you don't expose your Azure databases on public FQDN. The only requirement is that you deploy a small proxy in that environment, and you can use in your environment. It could be anywhere in the subscription, just one, and you can use that to protect your Azure databases. We are looking into options to avoid that deployment in future, and the timeline is not confirmed yet, but we will support that. Support a system that does not require to do anything in Azure and just bring your Azure workloads.
So what are my storage options for Metallic Recovery Reserve?
Michael, should I take that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I can take that one as well.
Okay.
So we support the following configurations. The first one is on primary storage. We have Metallic Recovery Reserve on Azure. That's hot. Your secondary option is also Metallic Recovery Reserve on Azure for cool. There is another scenario where for your primary option, you can bring your own storage on Azure. And for the secondary options, you have bring your own storage on Azure. You can also go with Metallic Recovery Reserve on Azure for your hot storage, or you can choose from Metallic Recovery Reserve on Azure for your cool storage. So two different scenarios there. They cover BYOS and Metallic Recovery Reserve.
Right, and it looks like the final question I've received so far reads, what sets Metallic apart from other vendors doing SaaS backup?
Yeah, I think the thing that we really like to point to first and foremost is the breadth of the workloads that we cover. As Mohit touched on, we don't just cover Azure, we also cover Oracle, we cover AWS and others. And so we've got a very, very broad spectrum of workloads that we can cover for customers and partners. And then I think, the other one that's equally important is just the simplicity of the platform. As you've seen in the demo, it's very intuitive. It's very easy to navigate. Options are laid out very, very well. At the end of the day, I think those two, combine for a winning formula to make sure that you can provide data protection as a service, anywhere to anyone. It's very easy to get started on the platform. If you haven't used it and you want to check out the trial link, you can try it for 30 days, and it's really astounding how quickly you can be up and running and protecting your data, whatever incarnation it's in. So yeah, I think those two things between, what we cover and the ease of use and protecting it are what really stand out for me.
So we've kind of exhausted our questions for now. So while we give our audience just one final moment to send in any more questions, I'll go ahead and give away our gift cards. These are for 4 $25 Amazon gift cards. Nordia G, Bob R, Ansgar F, and Donald R. So to our 4 winners, congratulations. Keep an eye on your email inbox to claim that gift card. But if you don't happen to see that email, do check your spam folder. I'll also take this opportunity to remind everyone that our discussion today was recorded. So maybe you missed the beginning, or maybe you had to leave early. You will be receiving an email with a link to access this recording on demand. Or as always, you can find it living on the Container Journal website at containerjournal.com/webinars. Then just be sure to look in the on-demand section. So Mohit and Michael, I'm not seeing anything else. So I do want to give each of you the opportunity to leave our audience with any closing remarks before we go off the air.
Yeah, thank you, Cody. And thanks for being such a gracious host, and thanks for having us today. Yeah, again, just really grateful for everyone joining us today and taking a few minutes out of their day. We know how busy everyone is. And if there are any additional questions, or if there's something we didn't cover that you'd like to know more about, please do feel free to contact us. We'd love to have that dialogue with you.
All right, Mohit, anything from your side?
No, this is really great. Thank you everyone for your time. I am the product manager for Metallic. VMNK, it is databases, file object, and Active Directory. So like Michael said, if you have any questions, you want to look at more demos, you can reach out to Metallic. The best thing to do is start a trial, and then you'll have customer support handhold you wherever you need, and you can try it out. There is nothing will hurt you.
Awesome. Well, Mohit and Michael, thank you both so much for taking the time to join me today and for putting together the slides, the demo. I know all the work that goes into putting these presentations together. So thank you so much for your diligence.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us.
Of course.
So
I'd like to thank Metallic, Commvault Venture, for sponsoring today's program, and to everyone who joined us for the past 50 or so minutes. Thank you so much for joining us. We really value your time, but we also really value your feedback, and we want to give you the opportunity to give us that. So as soon as we close out, a survey will pop up on your screen, and we do want you to fill that out for us. Otherwise, we do hope to see everyone at an upcoming Techstrong Learning program. Have a great rest of your day, and Michael, Mohit, thank you once more.
Thank you. Have a great day.
Thank you. Have a great day.